The first thing Velron noticed was the coughing. It started in the back row of the lecture hall, soft, rhythmic, almost polite. But within minutes it spread like a symphony of doom. A sharp sneeze cracked through the recycled air. Then another. The human students didn't seem alarmed, but Velron's internal sensors were already flashing amber warnings. Pathogens. Airborne. Uncontained. Velron adjusted the filtration node at the base of his neck. He had come to Earth as part of the Interstellar Cultural Exchange Program, an elite initiative sponsored by the Galactic Concord to observe and understand pre-FTL species. Earth, with its unstable governments and questionable hygiene protocols, had been a controversial assignment. But Velron had been curious. The human reputation in the archives was bizarrely contradictory. Reckless, yet innovative. Chaotic, yet adaptable. Now, sitting in a lecture hall at the University of Oregon, surrounded by sniffling, red-eyed bipeds, Velron wondered if curiosity had been a fatal flaw. The human professor, a woman named Dr. Emily Trent, paced at the front of the room, seemingly unfazed by the biological warfare unfolding in her classroom. "All right, everyone," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Remember, your essays on post-antibiotic resistance are due Monday. No excuses." Velron raised a limb. "Dr. Trent, I must inquire, are we under microbial assault?" She blinked. "You mean the sniffles?" "It's just a cold." "A cold?" Velron's voice faltered. "As in an illness?" "Well, yeah." She smiled. "It's a rhinovirus. Harmless unless you're immunocompromised. Go pick up some Dayquil or drink tea." Velron turned slowly, scanning the room. One human student blew his nose into a tissue, examined the contents, then folded it into his pocket. Another was coughing into her elbow, eyes watering. Velron's two fellow alien students, Keb, from the lush oceans of Halia, and Jirak, a crystalline sentience from the Vex cluster, were both frozen in their seats. Jirak's voice rang out, clear and sharp. "This is a biohazard. We must quarantine." "I agree," Velron said quickly. "Dr. Trent, we must initiate containment procedures." She laughed. "Well, you're welcome to wear a mask if it makes you feel better. But really, this is nothing." Keb's fins twitched with unease. "On Halia, we isolate for weeks at the first sign of fluid expulsion. And we evacuate entire domes," Jirak added. "This level of infection would be considered a planetary threat." Dr. Trent chuckled again, but it faltered as she took in their serious expressions. "You're not kidding," she said. Velron stood. "We must report this to the Galactic Concord Observation Panel." He left the classroom with Keb and Jirak trailing behind. The campus was bustling, humans moving between buildings, some visibly sick, others blissfully unaware. Velron activated his field log and began recording. Earth log. Observation timestamp 43. Local species appears to function normally under biotic stress. Multiple individuals display signs of infection. Casualties. None observed. Response from authority figures. Dismissive. Hypothesis. Humans have evolved symbiotic tolerance to airborne viral threats. Keb hissed softly. "No. This is madness." The three made their way to the designated observation center, an inconspicuous building on the edge of campus disguised as a geology lab. Inside, the sterile white interior and humming equipment were a welcome contrast to the microbial chaos outside. Velron patched into the Concord channel and submitted an emergency update, attaching sensor readings and environmental scans. The reply came within minutes. "Concord to observer Velron. Data inconclusive. Continue monitoring. Avoid unnecessary contact." Keb slammed his webbed hand against the console. "They expect us to sit here and let it infect us?" Velron sat down heavily. "We need to understand how the humans survive this. There must be an adaptive mechanism." Jirak approached a data terminal and pulled up Earth's medical archives. "They use chemical treatments." "Look." Velron leaned in. The screen displayed a list of substances: amoxicillin, azithromycin, doxycycline. Underneath, a heading: antibiotics. "What are these?" Keb narrowed his eyes. "Chemical agents," Jirak said. "They interfere with microbial function, but they're not used for viruses. Only bacteria." Velron frowned. "Then how do they survive viral infections?" "Mostly supportive care," Jirak replied. "Hydration, rest, sometimes antivirals." Keb snorted. "That is not a plan. That is surrender with optimism." Velron stood again. "We need a first-hand case study. A human undergoing infection. Observation in real time. They didn't have to look far. The next morning, a knock rattled the door of the observation center. Velron opened it to find one of the human students from the lecture hall, tall, pale, and visibly deteriorating. He swayed slightly as he smiled weakly. Hey, I heard you guys know science stuff. I think I need help. Velron took a step back. You are ill. Yeah, real bad. I'm Victor Manson. I was in Dr. Trent's class. Keb backed away, already activating a decontamination field. Victor stumbled inside and collapsed onto a bench. His shirt clung to him with sweat. His breathing was shallow, and his hands shook as he reached into his backpack and pulled out an orange prescription bottle. I think it's strep throat. Got antibiotics yesterday. Just wanted to make sure I don't. Like Dot, Velron grabbed a scanner, waving it over Victor's chest. Readings lit up. High fever. Swollen lymphatic tissue. Elevated white blood cell count. Bacterial presence confirmed. Keb's fins flared. Outrageous. This is a terminal infection. Victor stared. Terminal? It's strep. I just need to take these for like 10 days. He popped a pill in his mouth and chased it with water from a crumpled plastic bottle. Jirak's voice was hushed. He just ingested a chemical compound. Without supervision? Victor winced. This stuff will knock it out. I just need to sleep it off. Velron stared. You are confident this will cure you? Cure me. Victor coughed. Yeah, it's antibiotics. We've been using them for, like, decades. Keb whispered, this is alchemy. Victor leaned back, already dozing. Velron watched, equal parts horrified and amazed. The fever was real. So was the infection. But Victor was treating it like an inconvenience. Over the next few days, they monitored him from behind thick glass. Victor's fever broke on the third day. By the fifth, he was upright, eating canned soup and watching cartoons on the terminal monitor. On the seventh day, he knocked again, this time with a grin. Feeling way better. Thanks for letting me crash. Velron blinked. You were infected. Your immune system was under siege. And now you are recovered. Yeah, just finished the antibiotics this morning. Keb stared into space. This changes everything. Victor clapped Velron on the shoulder. You guys are all right. Stay healthy. He left, whistling. Velron turned to the others. We must reassess Earth's biological protocols. Jirak nodded slowly. These humans, they live on the brink of microbial disaster. And yet they continue. Keb looked ill. I thought I would witness the end of a species. Instead, I watched one nap through bacterial warfare. Velron returned to the terminal and began compiling the report. The footage, the logs, the recovery timeline. He labeled it, Case Study, Victor Manson Human Biological Resilience. He paused, then added a subtitle, Antibiotics, the Earthling Elixir. But even as he typed, a part of him wondered how could a species so vulnerable survive so long with such casual tools? And what would happen when those tools no longer worked? The next time Velron saw Victor, it was 4 days later, near the vending machines outside the university library. A faint scent of synthetic cheese lingered in the air as Victor stood examining a bag of neon orange pretzels. His skin had lost its pallor, and his voice carried a casual bounce as he greeted Velron with a nod. Didn't think I'd bump into you again, Victor said. You ever try these? They taste like regret and salt. Velron tilted his head. Your recovery appears stable. Victor shrugged. Yeah, pretty much back to normal. Still a little sore throat, but nothing serious. Velron stared at the snack bag. Are you aware that it contains 19 chemical additives not found in natural food sources? That's kind of the point, Victor said, tearing it open. You want one? Velron declined, stepping back slightly. Victor chewed noisily. You still doing alien science things? Velron hesitated. We are conducting longitudinal assessments of Earth's microbial resilience. You were a valuable data point. Victor gave him a sidelong glance. I was a science project? An unwilling participant, Velron admitted, but your cooperation was appreciated. Victor snorted. Well, glad I didn't die. Would have made your charts messy. A high-pitched chime buzzed from Velron's comm link. He tapped it. Keb's face flickered into view, his eyes darting nervously. Come back to the center. Jirak's found something. Velron turned to Victor. Do not consume any more of those pretzels. Victor waved lazily. No promises. By the time Velron entered the observation center, Jirak had already dimmed the lights and projected a sequence of images onto the central display wall. Petri dishes, cell cultures, and a blinking graph filled with red spikes. We sequenced the bacteria from Victor's saliva sample, Jirak said. Some strains had developed resistance markers. Keb folded his arms. That human didn't just survive an infection. He hosted a mutating pathogen cluster. Velron peered at the display. The antibiotics neutralized the immediate threat, but the surviving colonies adapted. They adapted fast, Jirak said. Faster than baseline mutation rates. Keb stepped forward. We need to report this. If these strains disseminate, Velron cut him off. Hold. We need context. Is this an anomaly or common? Jirak gestured toward the wall. I cross-referenced Earth's medical databases. Resistance is widespread. Entire bacterial families have developed tolerance to multiple antibiotic classes. Keb's voice dropped. And yet, they continue to distribute these medications. Velron paced. Their pharmaceutical model is reactionary. They treat symptoms, not root causes. Jirak zoomed in on a highlighted portion of the graph. This strain shows resistance to 6 different molecules. It was present in Victor's sample, dormant. Keb stared. He's a carrier? Unknowingly, Jirak said. He likely inherited it from environmental exposure. Possibly food, soil, or another human. Velron turned away from the screen. We need to speak to another sample group. One data point is insufficient. You want to test more humans? Keb asked. Voluntarily. We'll need subtlety, Velron said. Observation through indirect interaction, preferably in a high-density population. Jirak nodded. The campus gym. Keb blinked. You want to infiltrate a sweat chamber? Contact transmission is high there, Jirak said. Shared surfaces. Minimal protective barriers. Velron agreed. We'll rotate. I'll take today's observation. Late afternoon, the gym pulsed with music and the whir of machines. Velron wore a university-issued hoodie 2 sizes too large and made a show of adjusting shoelaces he didn't need. He moved from treadmill to stretching mat, scanning for any signs of microbial exchange. A woman let out a sharp laugh near the water fountain. She wiped her forehead with the bottom of her shirt and then touched the keypad on the rowing machine. Minutes later, a man used the same machine without cleaning it. Velron's visor tracked the transfer of skin oils, sweat, and particulate matter. He activated his wrist module and murmured, documenting vector contact. Sequence initiated at 26 minutes past arrival. High transfer rate. No disinfection observed. A man beside him coughed into his hand, then gripped the pull-up bar. Another woman sneezed and kept running. Velron's internal filters buzzed in protest. He adjusted the settings and took 2 steps back. Hey, came a voice from the bench press area. You gonna use that mat, or just stare at it weird? Velron looked up. A young man with flushed cheeks and a towel around his neck was squinting at him. I am performing passive analysis, Velron said. The man raised an eyebrow. Cool. Just don't hog the space. Velron relocated to the far end of the gym. He had enough data. Every shared surface was a potential pathogen highway. And yet, none of them seemed concerned. No gloves. No masks. Only a few wiped equipment down, and even then, with casual flicks of their wrists. Back at the observation center that evening, Velron uploaded the footage. They'd bathe in exposure, Keb said, watching the footage with a grimace. It's a miracle they aren't extinct. They've normalized risk, Velron replied. Their immune systems must operate under constant pressure. Jirak tapped the keyboard. I ran a comparative analysis. Human lymphocyte activity is elevated compared to most Concord species. Their bodies are in a perpetual state of low-grade defense. Keb exhaled sharply. That's not adaptation. That's desperation. Velron leaned back. Perhaps both. The next morning, they reviewed footage of a student clinic across campus. A line of humans had formed outside before it opened. Some looked pale, others hunched over slightly. Once inside, they spoke briefly to a nurse, received prescriptions, and left within minutes. They self-diagnose and seek pharmacological confirmation, Jirak noted. Minimal examination. Rapid dispersal of medication. Velron narrowed his eyes. Efficiency over precision. Keb pointed at the screen. That one just said he's had a sore throat for a couple days and wants something strong. The physician gave him pills without even checking his throat. Jirak looked uneasy. This is not medicine. It's distribution. Velron's expression darkened. They are accelerating resistance through overuse. Keb turned away. They're engineering their own extinction. Velron shook his head. No, they're gambling. And so far, they keep winning. Jirak folded his arms. Until the odds catch up. 2 days later, Victor showed up at the observation center unannounced, holding a steaming plastic container. I brought soup, he said, pushing the door open. Figured you guys don't get out much. Keb stepped back. You are unapproved for entry. Victor shrugged. Come on. You let me sleep here when I was dying. Least I can do is bring chicken noodle. Velron waved him through. State your current health status. Victor scratched his head. Fine. Still a little tired, but I'm back in class. No fever. He sat at the table and opened the container. A faint herbal aroma filled the room. Smells like boiled comfort, Jirak said, cautiously intrigued. Victor grinned. That's the time. Velron sat opposite. We've been reviewing the data from your illness. Victor took a sip of soup. Let me guess. I'm full of mutant germs. Your microbiota includes multiple resistance markers, Velron confirmed. Have you been informed of this by any medical professional? Victor blinked. No. Why would they? This poses a risk to herd immunity, Jirak said. Your continued interaction with others could spread these traits. Victor shrugged. I mean, I finished the antibiotics. That's what you're supposed to do. Keb leaned forward. Did your physician test for resistance before prescribing them? Victor laughed. What? No. They ask what you feel like, maybe check your throat, and give you pills. It's not rocket science. Jirak looked disturbed. It should be. Victor took another bite. Look, I get it. Maybe we're a little casual, but we've got systems. If stuff gets bad, the CDC steps in. We've got protocols. Velron tapped the table. We've observed minimal enforcement of said protocols. Victor sighed. It's not perfect, but you can't shut everything down every time someone sneezes. Life has to keep moving. Keb whispered. Even if it moves into collapse? Victor looked up. You think we're on the edge of collapse? Jirak answered. Your species is balancing on a microbial knife. Victor leaned back. Yeah, that sounds about right. He slurped the soup. That's kind of our thing, though, he added. We don't fix stuff until it's breaking. And then we patch it with duct tape and caffeine. Velron stared. That is not sustainable. Victor smiled faintly. Neither is life, really. But here we are. He stood, placed the empty container in the trash, and stretched. Anyway, thanks for letting me be your science experiment. Try not to stress too much. The world gets weird when you look too close. He left without waiting for a reply. Velron looked at the others. We report this to the Concord tonight. Are we recommending intervention? Jirak asked. No, Velron said. We recommend continued observation. Keb's eyes narrowed. Why? Velron turned back to the screen, where Victor's soup container slowly rotated inside the trash bin. Because they shouldn't be surviving. But they are. 3 days after Victor's final visit, the observation center smelled like overcooked lentils. It wasn't intentional. Jirak had insisted on replicating a human dietary pattern using ingredients from a campus grocery store. The result was a bubbling pot of something that resembled soup only in temperature and viscosity. Keb had quietly sealed his olfactory vents 30 minutes in. Velron stood by the ventilation panel, watching the steam rise. You added 5 different legumes, he said. Why? Fiber, Jirak replied. Humans consume it to regulate digestion. I balanced the macro ratios based on their online nutritional consensus. Consensus? Keb muttered from behind a sterilized face shield. The same consensus that eats glowing sugar sticks and calls it breakfast? Jirak ignored him and continued stirring. Velron had more immediate concerns. The report they had submitted to the Concord had returned with a directive, conclude field observations within 1 Earth week and submit a final synthesis of human microbial management strategies. No further interventions. No recommendations. Just data. They're treating this like an anthropological study, Velron said. Not a biological red flag. The Concord fears appearing paternalistic, Jirak replied. Human autonomy is valued. They're autonomous in the same way fire is autonomous, Keb said, stepping away from the table. Unstoppable unless extinguished. Velron turned toward the center's main terminal and opened the last set of health records they had legally accessed via campus data systems. Nothing new. Same patterns. Mild infections, fast prescriptions, short follow-ups. No culture testing. No resistance tracking. It was like watching a crew patch a sinking ship with chewing gum and optimism. We need a control variable, Velron said suddenly. Something to measure against. We already have Victor, said Jirak. No, he was symptomatic. I want to observe a human who hasn't been sick recently. Baseline behavior. No antibiotics in the last 6 months. Keb frowned. That's rare. Which is exactly why we need it. Jirak tapped into the campus health data. After several minutes, he gestured to the screen. Here. Name's Maya Patel. Undergraduate in biochemistry. No prescriptions on record since last year. No clinic visits in that time. Age 22, vegetarian, member of the campus running club. Velron nodded. Make contact. Casual invitation. No mention of illness. Later that afternoon, Maya sat at the center's table, sipping water from a reusable bottle that had tiny cartoon owls printed along the side. She wore a faded hoodie and looked mildly confused. So, you guys are doing a project on student wellness. Velron nodded. We're gathering data on preventative health practices. Oh, she said, setting down the bottle. Well, I bike everywhere and I haven't had a cold in, like, forever. I wash my hands a lot. And I don't share drinks. That's about it. You have not required medication? Asked Jirak. Nope. Not even ibuprofen lately. Keb leaned forward. Do you attribute your resistance to diet, exercise, or genetic lottery? Maya laughed. Probably all three? I mean, my mom's a nurse. She's into all the immune-boosting foods, garlic, turmeric, that kind of stuff. And I don't hang around sick people if I can help it. Velron steepled his fingers. You actively avoid exposure? Yeah. I mean, you can't avoid everything, but I try. I wipe down gym equipment. I carry sanitizer. And I don't go to class if I feel off. Keb turned to the others. So some of them do have protocols. I mean, Maya added, most of my friends aren't that careful. They'll be coughing all over the place and still show up to labs. You don't confront them? Jirak asked. She shook her head. Nah, you just sort of learn to dodge. It's not worth the argument. Velron glanced at the readings from the environmental scanner beneath her seat. Airborne particulate count, low. Surface contamination, negligible. You seem aware of microbial transmission, he said. Well, she said with a shrug. I work in a bio lab part-time. You learn the hard way when your bacteria culture ends up contaminated because someone didn't autoclave a pipette. Jirak's crystals glowed faintly in surprise. You manage live samples? Only non-pathogenic strains. Teaching lab stuff. Nothing scary. Keb leaned closer. And you are not afraid of exposure? It's all about protocols, Maya said. We wear gloves, goggles. We disinfect everything. The risk is tiny if you follow the process. Velron exchanged a glance with Jirak. Have you ever refused antibiotics? Jirak asked. I had a sinus infection 2 years ago, Maya said. Doctor said it was probably viral and told me to rest. I followed her advice. It cleared up. Your physician resisted unnecessary prescription? Keb asked, incredulous. Maya nodded. She's big on evidence-based medicine. Same one my mom works with. They try not to overprescribe. Jirak looked at Velron. She may be the statistical outlier. Velron looked at Maya. Do you believe most humans operate with similar caution? Honestly, no, she said. Most people want fast fixes. If you tell them to rest and hydrate, they act like you handed them a rock wrapped in disappointment. Keb exhaled slowly. So awareness exists, but compliance is selective. Pretty much. Velron tapped on his tablet and sent a silent signal to the terminal. The system began compiling the final report. They had enough. We appreciate your participation, he said. Maya stood and stretched. No problem. You guys are way more chill than I expected. Most biology majors are all about dissecting frogs or yelling about mitochondria. Jirak tilted his head. We do not yell. I meant metaphorically. As she left, Keb turned to Velron. She's an exception. A statistical anomaly. Yes, Velron said. But a useful one. She proves the species has capacity for restraint. Jirak folded his limbs across his chest. But they don't scale it. No, Velron admitted, but they could. They finished the report that evening. It was thorough. Data from Victor's infection, analysis from the gym, clinic footage, Maya's interview, and a complete breakdown of resistance trends by region. No embellishments. No judgment. Just observation. Transmission sent. The next day, they began packing. Velron folded the last diagnostic scanner into its case and looked around the center. It had been their home for 3 Earth months. Now, it felt too quiet. Keb powered down the environmental filters. So, what do you think happens next? They won't change quickly, Velron said. But they don't need to. They only need to survive long enough to adapt. Jirak unplugged the meal synthesizer. It's not efficient. Neither is evolution, Velron replied. But it works. As they stepped outside, the autumn air was crisp. A group of students jogged past, laughing, one of them coughing loudly. None of them wore masks. None of them slowed down. Jirak watched them disappear around the corner. They're still carrying it. Velron nodded. Yes. Keb adjusted his travel pack. And they'll probably give it to someone else. Yes. And they'll survive? Maybe. They walked in silence toward the transport shuttle at the edge of campus. At the bottom of the hill, they passed a bulletin board. Maya's running club had posted an event flyer. It read, 5K fun run for immune health awareness. Free sanitizer samples. No hugs, please. Jirak stopped. She's scaling it. Velron smiled. One anomaly at a time. They didn't look back.